Hello.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of CaOverwatch, your number one podcast for Toronto Defiant. How you doing, Spencer?
Man, I'm doing good. You know, as good as I can be doing given what happened this past weekend, but like it is what it
That we
is,
got
right? Like
slapped. Not
no,
slapped.
yeah, I was gonna
But
say, whoa. Hey, I think we're as disappointed as everybody, but like let's give him some respect. That was a map 5 round 3. Okay, slapped is not the right word for that.
slapped but a loss.
Yeah, it was a loss.
Close but no cigar.
Yeah.
Like every single time. Spencer, were there any positive notes?
I think there
Before
was
we
a
get into the
lot. I
meeting
like Loki. I don't want to talk about it before. I'll give you a very brief overview. But yeah, no, I think there was definitely
yeah,
positive
brief
notes.
overview.
I think that this is arguably for a lot of individuals some of the best games I generally think they've played all season. Agilities is nice to see him back in on the hog. That's not what I was expecting. And then obviously, Zick had his moments in the Pharah. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, I was actually coming away feeling pretty confident if we were able to win that game and do the double elimination that we could make somewhat of a run. Obviously not go top 4 or anything, but I thought we had potential.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think they did pretty well too. But I think I could also diagnose why they lost.
Yeah.
So, maybe we should get into first map, Ilios. Tell me, what are your thoughts about Ilios?
I mean, Ilios was just an interesting one, right? Because it was, I kind of forget the exact order, but one, I think Agilities comes out there on the hog and actually looked really good. And I think it kind
Yeah.
of caught the Gladiators off guard a little bit because we were able to just sort of take control over a point, and then they were sort of just like, well, I guess we're going to dive into the hog, right? And we were just able to sort of pick them apart whenever they came through. I mean, obviously, once again, it's going to be a narrative that kind of comes throughout this is it's not surprising that the one map we lose is the one map where Zick has to try to mirror the Sombra, and on the other two maps he can play the Pharah. So obviously in the two maps where he can play the Pharah, we look much better. You know what I mean? On the one map where he had to play the Sombra, we talked about it last week, so I don't want to talk about it too much this week, but he's just not a Sombra player, right? Like,
Well, I'd say I don't think that was necessarily the issue on Ruins. I think we lost when we played Ruins with our Ryan comp. I
yeah,
think
because
our
Nevix is also in
issue,
the Ryan, to be fair, so you're right. I think Nevix is a
yeah.
good player, he had a really good game. I just don't know if his Reinhardt is the same as Numlocks, but.
Well, from a more of a team perspective, I think the reason why we lost is, your win condition when you're playing on Ryan is that you're essentially a rushdown comp, right? You're looking for those one-off picks, I
Mhm.
think, with your hog, and then I'm guessing you're probably looking to do a rushdown afterwards.
Yeah.
And even though hog got that first initial hook on the diva when they're initially engaging, what they really didn't do is they really didn't rush down any single individual. They
Yeah.
were surrounded by the gladiators, and what they should have done is they should have made a decision to go for one or two people and maybe give up a couple percentages on point and then kind of pick them off methodically. But they just kind of chilled. And, no matter how good Nevix is on Ryan, if he's just hanging out doing nothing in the middle of the point while everybody surrounds him, even the best Ryan won't be able to do that. Even
Yeah.
Super won't be able to counter that.
Well, we know if I mean I don't want to call him Nevix for his Ryan, but I don't think he is the best Ryan, right? So it's like on top
Yeah.
of that, like because obviously I think we could run the comp because we did run the comp when we played at the very end map 5 with Num locked in.
Yeah.
We looked a lot better. So it was a weird. I think I tweeted I was like I don't know what that comp was, but like at least we won the map. Like it was very clear that wasn't working out. Nevix didn't look comfortable on the Reinhardt. Zick didn't look comfortable
Yeah.
on the Sombra. It was sort of like people were playing these picks they weren't very comfortable with. But on the two maps in that control where we were sort of playing our roles, we looked really good. And again, I think we'll talk about this more than once, but Agilities in his hog I think was a bright spot. Was a big surprise for me too. Like I know he'd played it in 2018, I just didn't know he was going to be this good. So for him to come in there and make that impact, and again, I just like the fact that we could take control over point and force the monkey to dive into us. I think that worked
Yeah,
well
exactly. So Hollywood, the next map. Why do you think we lost that?
too. Hollywood was the one where I think we had like a pretty decent defense, right? It sort of started
Yeah,
out where we actually had a fairly decent defense, and we were sort of running the Sombra like well, because I believe that was the one where Logix played it. I think
Yeah.
Six Pharah actually didn't work that well on this map. I think that was again partially because Gladiators could pick the map, so they picked a map where it was like less advantageous to run the Pharah.
Impactful.
So Zick was getting less value. Logic's Sombra wasn't actually terrible, but it's still it's not his best hero either, right? Like I mean, we'll talk about this at the
Would
end,
have
but
been
like
nice to
Surefour,
see
yeah, should have
Surefour.
been in there playing the Sombra. I think this would have looked entirely different, but like, I mean, whatever. We'll talk about it at the end. But I don't want to beat that too much. But anyways, so I think the defense was actually going okay. I think again, bit of a better map. As it could have performed a little bit better on the far, but whatever. We had one luck. We had to show it. And then on the attack, OGE switches over to the Wrecking Ball, and I feel like we didn't do a very good job at counter-stratting that. I think that was another one where like I almost wanted to see the Sombra then, you know what I mean? And then we didn't see it.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, versus the Monkey, you can get away with a couple of different other picks, but versus the Wrecking Ball, you really want that Sombra. And then Law just went over to the Tracer. So I was sort of like, I feel like during the Monkey, you kind of go Tracer, and then during the Wrecking Ball, you go Sombra, and it seems like we flipped it. So I mean, I guess that was a strategy we had going into it, but that was sort of my initial thoughts. How about you?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, the one thing I want to add here is the fact that Bird Ring comes in, and it's really
Yeah,
interesting.
that's a
I
good
think
point.
a little bit embarrassing because we got beat by like a sick Bird Ring who like people are talking about passed out like in the middle of the game.
The end of the
It's
game.
kind of like the man clearly wasn't on his game, and he just comes in and makes an immediate impact in Hollywood.
To be fair, Birdring's
Uh,
still a Birdring. I think he played well. I mean, he was obviously sick, so you think like, was he 100%? Maybe not, but like he played well. It's not
yeah,
like he was sitting
well,
there throwing the game.
yeah, it wasn't he definitely wasn't throwing the game, but even goes to show, what would he have been like on a day
Fair.
where he was completely on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would have been carrying even more. And obviously, yeah, once again, OG's ball is pretty good, and we didn't know how to counter that.
Yeah.
So moving on to I think Anubis. I'll start with my opinion. Here's why I think we didn't win Anubis. And I think I will give credit to some commentators. They give me some of the seeds for this idea.
Yeah.
But when we were running the hog comp,
Mm-hmm.
it's based off of individual pickoffs, not immediate team wipes. So when you're playing hog, you want to set up the hog so that he has the best chance of getting these individual picks. When you're playing on Anubis point B, well, you need to wipe the team as fast as possible so they don't just keep on trickling in, which is what they did. They kept on trickling in. They eventually would win it and
Yeah.
get enough picks that we couldn't take it. So I think our comp was the thing that was limiting us there. It was really, we would get a pick, and then a little bit later we get another pick, and then we'd snowball a little bit, but we wouldn't get enough picks fast enough to be able to really cap that.
Yeah, that really hurt us. I mean, that's definitely part of it. You're right. The comp didn't necessarily lend itself too well to fully doing it. But I think that's also been a bit of an issue with this team all year long. It's sort of their inability to sort of close out and like decisively win these team fights. Because there was like, I think we had like 4 opportunities to close that one out, right? We had the initial snowball. We had another one where we got like 1 or 2 picks off the bat. We had one near the end of the round.
Yeah.
We had the very final fight. I think there was like 4 times where I was like, man, Toronto Defiant are up and probably should be able to get this like final tick, and then they would just come out of the stall and somehow turn the fight on us. Like, it was so tough. I think that's something we struggled with all year long, and it was definitely noticeable in this map because you're right. I mean, us not being able to close out the snowball was the main reason we lost. Because again, our defense, we got full cat, but it wasn't horrible, right? Like, didn't just roll us. Like, I think we actually
It was a classic D. It's a classic D.
yeah, it was a classic D. We like got the time. I forget the exact moment where they did cap, but like it wasn't terrible. It was again a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
We just couldn't cap that snowball, and I think that really came back to haunt us.
Yeah, exactly. Now moving on to Dorado, I think we win this in pretty good fashion. This is something that I think is a bright spot on. Dorado's a bright spot on this whole game, and I think the later part of our last 5 games.
Yeah.
So, what did you like about how we played on Dorado?
Well, I think this was our best game, and I think our best map this game, and I think it's not surprising that, in my opinion, it was Zik's best map, right? I think
Yeah.
his far looked the best on here. Logix can win the duel. Logix is just such. I mean, we'll have another video another week where we talk about what this team should do moving forward. We obviously know that, and again, we'll talk about this at the end. Lil Bao was released. Some more decisions coming in the future, but man, if this is his last game for Toronto, I think he really went out on his shield, right? Like, he had some incredible plays. Again, Zik, this was sort of his best map, and this is when the team as a whole looked their best. And again, agility is making a bunch of impact. Dude, Cruz looked really good. There was a couple moments where I was like,
That was a
man,
good
Cruz
take.
is such a good mercy. And like,
Mercy.
we've knocked him, and I for the most part, I kind of stand by. I think his Brigitte, was okay. His Baptiste was okay. It could have been a little bit better. Same with his Lucio. Lucio a bit better, to be fair. But man, his mercy like generally impressed me. Like, watching his
He's
mercy.
getting lots of those reses off where he wasn't getting killed. He's going to attack Mercy and just
Yeah, he was just bouncing around. Every time I was like, oh my God, somebody's low, boom, Cruz would immediately fly over and hit them, right? Stay alive too. Like, and it wasn't just this map. I think Cruz played well the entire game, but
Yeah.
this map specifically, again, I was like, Zig's playing well, Logix is dominating, Jilly's hitting hook, Cruz is bouncing around. Like, I was really hoping we were gonna take this and win the match, but it wasn't meant to be. How about you, Chris? What stood out to you? Why do you think this was their best map?
I think the one thing that you didn't mention was that from an individualistic standpoint, they all performed. I wouldn't say that they necessarily performed with a team coordination attitude that outperformed LAG, but what I would say is that when they're looking at their individualistic matchups and individual plays, I think they all had good individual plays that I saw throughout the game. They were just winning their matchups. They were, taking on other people, getting two pieces. It was pretty good in that sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So obviously, moving on to the heartbreak, Lijiang Tower.
Man, I don't want to.
I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts.
I don't even have a lot of thoughts because, again, I don't want to. The last thing I want to do is put a loss on a player or try to. There's so much that goes into a team fight, right? But obviously, I don't think it's a coincidental that the 2 times we have to run the Sombra comps with Zik on is the 2 times that we lose. We talked about this versus the Dallas Fuel. The question of the day was, can we win with Zik Sombra if we don't see Surefour? Zik goes over to Junkrat. We look so much better. Boom, right? We win it. I know it was a close map, but still, you could tell he's having more impact. I think Zik's still a really good player. I just think Sombra isn't his hero. So it was tough watching us run those Sombra comps because I do think that I believe Kevster was running it or Bourbon, I forget which one, looked more comfortable, would usually when they hit the better EMPs, could follow up on the EMPs a little bit better.
Yeah.
It just kind of came down to, like, I don't even think we played bad. It was just sort of like, man, like, sometimes someone had to play their off role. And, I mean, obviously the big question is Agilities is taken out. A lot of people were, a little bit upset about that because he was a big reason why we were able to win the 2 maps we were able to win. I think the Hog was working pretty well, especially in control, right? Because you can put the Hog on the control map and you have to wait for people to sort of, dive into you. We've seen a lot of people since then run the Hog on Lijiang Tower, so it's not like it wasn't viable. But I don't want to knock him too much for that either, because at the end of the day, if they were scrimming the entire week and they had a specific strategy for that map, and if the read on their opinion was, hey, the best way to go about it is by not running the Hog, it's by running the dive, then, when the final game comes along and you play that map, I guess you got to stick to your strategies. So, like, I get it. I respect it.
It's weird because
you go.
They've had so much time to prepare. You would have thought they prepare some alternate strategies.
Yeah.
And you would have also thought that maybe they've noted that Zik isn't that strong of a Sombra player, so they maybe would have tried to work around it. I'm not quite sure.
And you can play the Pharah too. Like, I'm surprised. Like, Lijiang, you can play the Pharah on those maps, right? They're viable. So I don't know.
I know I get slapped by that and comp queue.
No, but you can still do it, right? That's not a ranked strategy, but it is still there's still a lot of high ground there, and they can float around with the big lighthouse in the middle. But
in terms of what I think, I totally agree with you. I think one of the reasons why we lost is because we didn't have Hog on that.
Yeah,
I think OGE is just like a better monkey than Numlocked is.
OGE is really good, and that's no disrespect to Numlock. I just think OGE is a really good monkey.
He's a really good monkey. And one of the other things I think is actually a little bit bigger and that we haven't been talking about is the fact that Kariv had to play Moria.
Moira, yeah.
I think Kariv's best, with Moria, your kit is your skill ceiling is a little bit lower in this line, like Ana. And we know that when he was playing Ana, he was popping off. Like, I saw him get booped up, I think, by a monkey nano monkey while he was in the air. He just slept the monkey while the monkey was in there too. Like, it's amazing sleeps. And when he's playing something like Moria, you just can't deliver as much value as somebody with that high of a skill level can do. So I think that's one of the other big reasons why we lost that is because we were bootstrapped a little bit by our comp.
Yeah, and it's tough too because when obviously one of the things would be like, okay, you play agilities, but we did the one map we won was with Numlocked on the Rhine, and we saw how Nevix played on the Rhine, right? So it's tough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to knock him for that. My biggest criticism from the team, the organizational standpoint, is like if you knew Surefour wasn't going to play, the roster lock was like August 1st or something. It was like end of July. Like if you knew Surefour wasn't going to play, in my opinion, that Sombra needs should have been addressed earlier just in case. because I think it really came around to bite us because again, like, and I don't want to shaft stick too much. He got the short end of the stick a little bit because again, his FAR looked good and his Junkrat looked good, but man, the team played really well. I think, and at the end of the day, it does leave me like a little bit happier. I'm glad we didn't just go in there and get rolled, which I think it was a little bit where a lot of people were worried about, right? That might happen. And this is sort of like when we lost to Philadelphia in the Summer Showdown, where it was like we lost, but you know what? We played well, right? Like we lost, but I think we played a pretty good game. So
I'm still going to take a little bit more of a pessimistic route. You know what? We keep on. This is the narrative every time, Spencer. It's the narrative every single time. We lose. It's close, but we lose. We're still losing.
yeah, no, I know.
That's a problem. And you know what? I'm sad that there's going to be some tough decisions that had to be made, and I'm glad there are because we need to do something. We've been bad for 2 seasons.
Yeah. So I think no, I totally agree. We'll get into another. We'll have a whole video of what we want Toronto to do in the offseason. I just want to answer a couple of last questions before we go because again, I'm going to gas the team up one last time. I know I said it before. Nevix, we haven't talked a lot about him, but man, he had some incredible peels. Again, there were so many times where I was like, somebody's low, and I thought they were going to die, and then boom, Cruz would immediately fly over and get the healing in, and boom, Nevix would immediately be there with the defense matrix. Like, Agilius was hitting some insane hooks and like almost carrying certain maps. Logic's had one of his best games of the entire season. Like, we're not even talking about Kareev. And Kareev was doing amazing on his Ana. You know what I mean? And like, what? Again, Zik, the Somber left some to be desired, but, and his barrages were a little bit off, but his neutral game with the FAR was really good. It was, again, like, man, this guy had more time to practice with the team if he wasn't on ping, right? Like, I wonder what he would be able to do. Like, his FAR was pretty good. His Junkrat was pretty good. The only thing that would really, kind of took away was the Summer wasn't great, but obviously the team played well, but it kind of comes back to like Chris, what happened with Surefour, right? Like we might as well try to answer this before we go, because I feel like you can't talk about this without.
Anything else you want to say about the Overwatch League champs in general?
Yeah, I guess our final thing. Well, Little Bow was also released. That's kind of not surprising. I feel like he's the first person to be released, but he will not be the last. I expect there to be a lot of changes coming up. And then in terms of our, we might as well end this on a sort of like who we think is going to win. Most of my predictions are staying the same. I think Washington Justice obviously really impressed a lot of people. I think Decay kind of looked like an MVP candidate, which is insane. I've never seen a single player carry as much as Decay's been able to carry. But at the end of the day, I think with enough time, the good teams like Philadelphia and Shock will be able to figure them out. So even though I do think Washington will still just like frag their way through that losers bracket, I think at the end of the day, they're going to get beat by whomever loses between the Shock and Philly. I still don't know because Philly looked really good against some of the weaker teams, including LA. The Shock, I still think are the Shock. And even though they looked mortal versus the Decay Washington Justice composition, I think that was because they didn't have enough time to counter-strat that. Now they do, so I expect them to win. The APAC region is a little bit more interesting. I think obviously Shanghai is still going to go. Seoul Dynasty was able to 3-0 Guangzhou Charge, which I didn't see coming. Wait, hold on. Let me check that real quick. Was it Guangzhou or was it? Sorry. Whoa. It was Guangzhou. Yeah, it was Guangzhou. And then obviously New York lost to Shanghai. So, Seoul now looking a little bit more dangerous than I thought they were going to. I still think they had a weird comp. I think it's going to be the same thing that teams will be able to figure that out. So unlike the other one where, I expect, where like Washington looked really good but did lose, Seoul actually won. So they are in the winners bracket technically. So they have to win one game in order to secure themselves a spot in the finals. But I still have faith that New York or Guangzhou will be able to sort of figure them out. So I'm leaning more towards New York actually, but we'll see.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's enough said around those points.
Yeah.
So cool. If guys, if you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you do or don't like, just comment on it. Let us know. We'd love to discuss with you.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts on the Toronto Defiant, how their season went, what you guys want to see going into next year, because we're going to have a really cool episode for you guys in the next coming weeks where we sort of discuss those sort of things. So thank you guys for watching, and as always,